let's move on to another great F1 topic. If you're new here, give us a subscribe, give us a like. We're on a mission to 1,000 subs, and we need you to hit it, baby. But let's talk about this, and it's going to be the first half season of F1, the first half season surprises, disappointments, and we're also going to give some second half predictions. But hey, what do you got here for us, Pat, for first half surprises and disappointments and maybe a prediction?
Absolutely. So first half surprise on the positive side. Not totally surprised after seeing what he did last year, but Pierre Gasly, he's 8th in points, right? He's got 50 points. He's racing with Alpha, and he's not with Red Bull anymore yet. So he's in an inferior car, but yet he's still racing really well. He's 8th right now. He came in 3rd at Azerbaijan. He's got 8 top 10 finishes this season. So Gasly, if you watched Drive to Survive on Netflix, you saw that there was a point when he was racing for Red Bull, and it almost seemed like the stage was too big for him. They sort of demote him, and now he comes right back, and he's been so good and with driving an inferior car. I mean, it's just surprising how successful he's been this year. Unless, if you saw him a little bit last year, he was really good last year too, and had some surprises for everybody as well. So this guy, despite all that he's kind of gone through, is still a very successful driver on the circuit. So Gasly's had a great first half of the year, and I hope it continues. Seems like a really good guy, and he's still really young, so he's going to be one of those guys that's going to climb the ladder as well in the F1 circuit. The guy that I'm going to say is a little bit of a disappointment, and maybe because I just have high expectations for him. I know you're a big fan of him, Brandon. That's going to be Daniel Ricciardo, who's right behind Gasly in 9th place with 50 points. He does not have a podium this year. He has 8 top 10 finishes, but his best finish was 5th at the Great Britain Grand Prix. And he's just, his teammate Lando Norris is in 3rd with 113 points. There's such a wide gap between the two teammates. He's with McLaren. He's in a really good car, and he's in 9th place. It just doesn't seem like he's gotten to that next tier of driving where some of these other guys have, like a Norris, even like some of the Ferrari guys, like a Leclerc, or some of those guys have. It just doesn't seem like Ricciardo has gotten there, and we're kind of still waiting for him to become this elite racer that everybody thinks he's going to be. And the clock's ticking because he's starting to get a little older, and there's all these young guys coming up right behind him.
No, I agree, and you nailed it on the head there, and you might have even had a little prelude to mine as well, to be honest. But I'm going to start with my first half surprises, and like you said, they might not even be a surprise, but it's more like a pleasant surprise. Like, hey, we're enjoying that this actually happened. So I would say how tight the championship battle is, honestly, and we've already had multiple lead changes for the championship, back and forth between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Right now, it's only an 8-point difference. So I think right now, this has been so far one of the more competitive and exciting F1 seasons that we've seen over the last few years. I think you got to go back to when Lewis was battling Seb, when Seb was at Ferrari. That's Sebastian Vettel, when he was at Ferrari, and it was that rivalry for the championship. And that was only a few years ago, but I think that was still the last time that we've had such an exciting rivalry for the Drivers' Championship and having it be so close. And arguably this year, it's even closer at any point than it was between Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. So I think, number one, that rivalry and that championship battle between Max and Lewis has been a real pleasant surprise, one that I've been enjoying every Grand Prix, watching them battle it out as the two best drivers on the grid. And then another great surprise, another pleasant surprise, is Lando Norris. You brought it up. He is driving his tail off right now. Is the only driver in F1 to score a point in every single race this season. We've talked about it on this show in the past, how sometimes it is just hard to even crack the top 10 in F1 because you're racing against the top 20 drivers in the world. So being able to put some points up on the board for your team is always a good thing. And Lando Norris has been doing it consistently all year long. So big ups to Lando Norris. Keep it going, young lad, young champ. I know you're going to be doing it. I'm a huge Lando Norris fan as well. Another big surprise is the resurgence of Ferrari. I think Ferrari is showing that they're making a push back to the front Right now, they're they're fourth in the Constructors' Championship, right behind McLaren, but they are nipping at McLaren's heels to get that third spot and put themselves back up in the conversation of the big three, which we all know the big three is Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari, okay? So they're right there. They're right back to putting themselves in that big three conversation. So it shows just how good they've been at developing their car this year, but also just how good Charles Leclerc has been driving to get max performance out of that Ferrari, but also his teammate, Carlos Sainz, has been doing the same thing. So I think as a pairing, that has been a great, pleasant surprise, not only for the fans, but definitely for Ferrari, getting them right back in the mix. Let's go to disappointments now. You brought up the number one big disappointment for me, and this is not a shot at him because honestly, he is one of my favorite drivers, but it's Daniel Ricciardo. I was expecting a lot more out of him in that McLaren car, but I'm going to defend Danny right here and still say that he is still one of the best drivers on the grid, one of the best drivers to have on your team to help you develop a car. And I have no doubt that over the second half of the season, he is going to have the form and get it together and show that he is one of the best drivers on the grid. Like I said, he's arguably going up against his teammate, who's one of the hottest drivers right now on the grid, scoring points in every race, right? Lando Norris, we just discussed it. But I think this clearly shows that these F1 cars are, when you go from a different constructor or a different team to another team, it is a major leap. It's not like these cars are just the same across the board. There's a lot of things you've got to learn system-wise, or the way the car handles, the way that the tires dag on this new car. So I just think it really shows that going from Renault last season to McLaren, he's just struggling a little bit with getting the handle of that McLaren car. But I have all the faith in the world in Danny Ricciardo that he's going to get it together over the second half of the season and get himself on the podium. I have no doubt in that. Another big disappointment is honestly that Nikita Mazepin is even on the grid. The Haas driver at times has been 2 to 3 seconds off the pace, putting himself just in no man's land and not even racing anybody. So at times we've only really had 19 cars really technically in the race or racing at all. So the fact that Mazepin is on the grid is a huge disappointment. And then I think another disappointment would be that I haven't got to see Mick Schumacher race anybody yet, because that Haas car is so bad. He's got to race his teammate Mazepin, and he's outraced him all season long. But I really want to see what Mick Schumacher can do in a better car. Hopefully we'll get to see him promoted, because I think he is another young, great driver that's going to be up and coming. But we just haven't got to see him in a car that can show and display his skills. So that's disappointing as well. But my second half prediction is that this battle between Lewis and Max is going to heat up, and honestly, it might get bitter even between the drivers at times going down, because they're fighting over this championship and everybody wants to win it. And then also, like I said, I think I'm predicting Danny Rick to get on the podium in that McLaren in the second half of the season. I believe in you, Danny Rick. I know you can get it done.
I'm going to zag with the final prediction for the rest of the season. I think that Ferrari's team is going to leapfrog McLaren in points, because I think Ricciardo's still going to struggle for the rest of the year. I think it's going to take him a full year to really understand that car and to really get used to it. So I just haven't been impressed with him. As you said, he's fun to watch. Drive to Survive. He's one of the best drivers to follow. He's a guy I root for. He just hasn't been who we all thought he was going to be. So I think Ferrari's going to leapfrog McLaren in the team points at the end of the year. So we'll see what happens there between those two guys. So we.
I don't know. Was that live? Could they hear that?
So our producer Ben was just in our ear giving us his end of the season prediction, and he said Christian Horner is the absolute worst F1 character across the board, which is no shocker to any of us here on the Comeback Sports show. And Ben, We love it, man. Thank you for that opinion. We next time just call into the show. We'll love to hear from you, folks. If you like this show, you're watching it right now on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. That's Comeback Sports on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel Comeback Sports, and then all the cut-ups that our awesome producer Ben Kudo puts together after the show. That'll all filter to your YouTube channel. You don't have to go search for it; it's just right there in your subscriptions.